Next to me here is an 1892 Mason and Hamlin reed organ. Welcome to Hack a Week. "24 hours later, and let's see what we have. So 48 hours of drying time. Pretty much the moisture just soaking into the wood and then drying. And this came out excellent. Still got maybe a little drying to do. Look at that. Let's see how it fits on the instrument. I trimmed it down a little bit. It looks like it's going to need to be trimmed down even more, actually, to fit in there okay. But for now, it's good enough just to put on there. Flip this over and see how it works. Wonderful. Now we get to cut this out to the same size as the old one. So I'm just going to lay this here and trace it out. I'm going to replace the felt on top of this push rod. So first I'm going to cut the old stuff off. Get a little bit of hide glue on there. Spread that around with a brush. It's cold out here in the garage today. Stuff is pretty thick. Let's get a piece on my felt. Here, we'll get a little bit on the felt. Okay, we're going to let that dry. While the felt is drying, we'll put some hide glue on the leather. Spread that around with the brush. I want to get it all the way out to the edges to get a good seal on this thing. And a little bit on the wood. But let it all dry for a while and then put it all together. The glue is set up a little bit. Like I said, it's cold in the garage today. And let's put that on my push rod. I'm just going to leave that like that for now. Now we can put our little leather hat on here. It's going to seal this all up. Takes care of that. I need to get inside here because when I press that lever down for the Vox Celeste, it's called, the one that's got the harmonies in here, lifts up the little pieces off the reeds, those are still sticking. I really need to get in there and clean them. So first of all, this octave shift here, this mechanism needs to come off. It's held on with two hinges. A little hard to get at the screws, but that's got to come off. Then there's some screws around the perimeter of this. Then I got to work with all the linkages and figure out how I can lift this thing off from here without having to take a lot of things apart. It's going to be a little tricky. The screw for these hinges is kind of buried down in here under all of this mechanism, so a little tricky to get at. Let's see what happens. Hey, look at that. It's all just lifts right off. I should probably replace all of this felt while I'm here. So far, I've removed 1, 2, 3 screws, and then under that mechanism was one there, one there, one there. I think that's it. You can see these have felts. A lot of the felts are there to stop noise from happening. Now this is going to come off, looks like with this, and it is connected fully connected to this joint here. So what's my easiest way to remove all of that without having to remove all of this stuff, because it's a little tricky. A lot of the stuff is accessible on the side, but then you would have to pull out this whole entire assembly. I know there's a name for it. I don't know what that name is. Anybody knows, please put it in the comments. And the other side too, this one's just passive, so that'll come right off. This one is connected. Tricky. What do? Well, you pull the screws and see what happens. That's kind of how you figure things out. You just sometimes got to dive right in and start taking crap apart. These all move and come out, so they can just stay with this. So this is all loose. It'll come out, but it's being held in by all of these side mechanisms. So we got to think about engineering, and somebody back in time went, well, someone's going to need to service this and they'll need to pull it off easily. So what do? We put this little tab here that can swing out of the way, allowing you to lift that up. And if I can lift that up, that means that this can be lifted up. The simplest thing for that is just to remove all these little brackets and then just sort of pivot this a little out of the way. This will be free of that and hopefully lift up out of that part. Then I have this, which is easy enough. We just flip that arm back and now that's free. Over here, this one's on top, so that's not a problem. There is one down low, but that's going to be under this cover, I believe, as is that one. This one here is stuck in place by that one right there. So that's going to be a bit tricky. Let's see what we can do about that. Might be able to just fudge that over enough, ever so gingerly. Yes, there we go. So now let's just take this off. Take off these guys. These little clamps have felt, of course, under them and around the bar. Felt was used on so much stuff as a bushing material. Felt and leather. This bar is now loose, but did that do me any good? Because over here, that bar goes under that. Darn, I didn't notice that. And that is a torsion spring for this whole flap right here. Well, I guess easiest thing is going to be to just pop up this torsion spring. This is going to want to twist when I pull this up. I need to pull it out of the wood right here first. I'm not sure which way it's in there. There it goes. See how it twists? Torsion spring. So it came out kind of like that. Over here are some tacks. I can just pull those out. At least this one. And be sure to replace the felt. There's a piece of felt. There. Now that comes out over the top. Alright, let's see what we can do here now. Right, let's see if this will now lift up out of here. Oh, there's one more connection right over here. That's got to come apart as I lift and go that way with it. So let's see. This looks like it's all free on this side. It's going to be a little tricky because I got to come up all the way of this now towards me. So as I lift it up and pull it towards me this way, I've got to pop this mechanism apart. Come a little bit more this way. There we go. Now this should lift up. Oh, okay. It's wow, this is all connected and it's got to come the other way. That stays behind. This comes off. Should have pushed it the other way. I was looking at it backwards. So now it comes off. What is under here? See, it's just a big board with lots of dowels poking through. Quickly running out of space to put things. This workbench is just, you know, typical insanity of a tinkerer, maker, doer person. Nice padding, huh, for this? Yeah, inner tubes. Yeah, so I got a lot of available space used up. Anyway, let's continue. So this is the main thing I'm concerned with. This is that Vox Celeste or Voix Celeste. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. When I press this, which normally would be from the actuation lever on one of the stops. So when that stop is pulled, it pushes on this lever via that actuation lever and lifts this up. It also lifts up dowels off from the reeds. The reeds can then vibrate and they're sticky. So it's like it comes up and it wants to stay there, and I'm not sure why. There's a little spring that pushes back down on it, but there's just a sort of a resistance there that I'm not sure what it is. Somewhere there's something binding, and I'm thinking it's the junction between the dowel and this lever. Need further investigation with better light. I think a lot of it is just dirt, crud, not being used for a while. That dowel comes up and it's glued to a white piece of felt, and that felt actually in a way can act like a hinge, and it could be that those are just a little stiff, but if I work it a few times it starts to want to drop back down on its own, but once in a while one sticks and you just touch it a little bit and it comes back down. So like I say, I think the binding is just from not being used much. I don't really want to take all that mechanism apart just to replace the felts. If I can figure out a way to make them work now just by cleaning them perhaps. There's a lot of dust in here everywhere. So the next step would be some gentle compressed air and get all of the dust and everything out and see what we get from there. It's still being stubborn. So what do we do next? I just noticed each one of these banks has a screw there and there. So maybe I can lift these out and perhaps clean them a little better. Yeah, if I go one at a time, they're coming out okay. Actually, since I'm doing this, I may as well replace all of these felts on the bottom of these pegs. There it is. There's a little piece of felt on every one. Yeah, take a look in these holes. You can see where they were originally drilled, and you know, it's not bad, but it could be a little cleaner. Maybe I'll just clean all these up a little bit and apply some new felts to the bottom of those. Put it all back together and see what we got. So this is a little scary, but if I keep my hand here where I don't go too deep and bang one of the reeds, I can deburr these holes a bit. Temporary reassembly so I can see how the dowels are going to move through the holes now. I'm still going to replace all the felt, but I just want to do a test fit and see if we actually achieved anything with all of that effort. So they're going to be to the place about like that. Oh yeah, look at that. That's a lot better. Well, maybe not. Hang on. I got to get this anchored down. I really need to screw it in place. Now let's check it out. Oh, look at that. Nice smooth operation. Alright, back out it comes, and we do the felts. I'm going to replace every single one of these felts. It's a chromatic scale, so there's 13 and 13, right? Yeah, each one of these has got to be replaced, and I've got a leather punch over here and some felt, and I've got to punch them all out one at a time with this. Then it gets stuck in there, so I just keep going. Let's see. Yeah, it's not bad. Comes off fairly easy. I think that'll work. And now we start gluing. So I've got some hide glue here warmed up in the microwave, warmed up pretty warm. A bunch of little pieces of thin felt. Punched them out with this little punch, just the right size to cover these. And the first thing I've got to do is stir this around a little bit and get a dollop of glue on each one of these. Start at this end and work my way back so I'm not working over the top of stuff I've already done. Now we can start placing felt dots. It's important that these are on there and in good shape because they silence the reed when these are dropped down onto the reed. It cannot vibrate, therefore it makes no sound. While that's drying, I'm in the process of cleaning off all of this felt. All this does is just provide a little bumper and insulation for the torsion spring so it doesn't vibrate. Okay, more warmed up hide glue. Gotta get it underneath this spring. Okay, that's done. You can put all the stop valves back in now. Okay, let's check the action. They should drop right back down. Yes, and they're all touching the reeds, thus muting them. Excellent. Two more felts to go here, just a couple of small circles. I've got all the action working the way it should now. Of course, some of this is disconnected because the top is off, but yes, all of these are working as they should. Okay, let's get those felts. All right, what I'm after here is to replace the felt strips along the bottom here that seal this up. And I've left all the pegs in that actuate the keys so that I can just flip it over and work on it. Not have to worry about them falling everywhere. I just got to be very careful. So first thing, let's just get this all wet. I've got a steamer, but it's not here at the premises. That would work really well on this. But getting water on it is the next best thing. This isn't so bad. This is peeling up. All of the sealing felt is replaced. This is ready to go back on to the instrument after an evening of drying. There's a couple more places to put felt right there at that joint. There's one of those on each corner of this, one here, here, and then at the other end there and there. And over here, I've already stripped off the old pieces. One goes there, one there, one right there, and one right there. Here we have the Octave coupler mechanism. So as I showed you earlier, I think when this lifts up, basically it moves everything up 1 octave on part of the keyboard. This has got a lot of felt. This has one big piece of felt here that's glued here and here. In the middle, it's not glued to anything. There is a strip that runs along here that it looks like is underneath everything here. So I don't think I'm going to try to replace that one. I'm going to replace this strip right here. This is where the levers fall down onto. So I got this book the other day. This is really good. Found it on eBay. This is a 1930 copy, not from 1930, obviously printed later, but it's a copy of that, I'm certain. Anyway, it's got everything in here. It's all about what things are named, how they're put together, the construction of them, how to repair them. And now I know a little more about what I'm talking about. From this, I learned about the cavity board, which is this whole assembly here. I believe that's what they're referring to. That's the cavity board, because that's what basically has everything on it that makes it do what it does. These things I was calling a baffle is a mute. Just like it sounds, it mutes the sound, so you won't get any sound unless one of these or multiple ones are opened up. So from what I can gather from the book, I believe that this is the soundboard. I'm not sure what these are called yet. These are what, when you press on a key, this pushes down, opens up the chamber that allows air to flow through and make the reed make noise. There's a little thing I want to replace here. Let me zoom in on that little part. It's a tiny wooden dowel. There are 2 of them right there, and they're kind of like a roller, so that when this gets moved, the piece that moves across it can roll easily. This one has a big flat spot worn in it. You can kind of see it there. So I need to see if I can get this brass lock washer thingy off to start out with, which should be doable. It looks like it was put on and then the rod was actually peened over a bit. Okay. Now, get this piece off, get a dowel that's that size, and drill a hole in it and mount it up on there. Voila. You just put this little washer back on somehow. Maybe I can use one of my punches to just push it on there. Indeed I can. Yeah, there we go. It's not going anywhere. That takes care of that little guy. Okay. The tricky part. Getting this all back in here properly. The whole mess goes under this wire. And it's all going to drop straight down. And we swing this back in place and tighten it up a bit. Now the octave shift mechanism can go back in. There, and right there. Okay. And let's make sure that this is all in the proper space. Yes, it is. Well, let's hear what it sounds like. Well, let's play some silly little thing. Well, another vintage instrument in the collection, 1892, 129 years old, almost 130. This makes it the oldest instrument I have in my collection of vintage instruments, second only to the 1908 upright piano, and then it gets into the saxophones, trumpets, etc. This was a lot of fun. Learned a lot of stuff in a really short time. I'm still going to keep learning, I just know it. I jumped on the Reed Oregon forum and learned a few things there, shared some stuff as well. And those people are craftsmen, all the people on that site do some really amazing work. So anyway, pretty neat old organ, fun to work on. Seamus is in here with me. He thinks it's cool. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time.